Let's get going into our collaborative paragraph practice. So we're going to, in the course, the context that I use is more of a language arts context. We're talking about beginning, middle, end. We're talking about writing narratives. So if you haven't seen it yet, that's that take on it in the course segment. So today I thought we'd do something more related to math and generating speaking and writing around a math topic so you can get a feel for what it looks like in another context, because you never know what groups you're going to be working with and how. And what we want to continue to always communicate with teachers and when we collaborate, when we work together, is that we want to incorporate that listening, speaking, reading, and writing through the whole day in every content area. And how can we do that language and literacy development without taking us too far off track from a math lesson or from the science lesson? So we're going to walk through that, and we're going to try incorporating a Google Doc in that process, and also a Padlet, so you can see how that might work. Now, I've used Padlets with students before. I've used Google Docs with students when they have their own document, but I have not used the Google Doc the way we're doing it today. So yeah, I'll tell you, that's a total experiment that we're going to try right now. But I'm looking forward to trying if they can ever get us back with our kids. All right, so let me share my screen. I have some slides ready for us to get started with. All right, so this is a bit of a going back and forth between being teacher and your students and being participants and presenters. So I hope I don't confuse you with that. So we would start, of course, with the outcome. And I'll put these slides in the course also, so you have something to start from, at least so you can remember what the structure was. We always start with the outcome, so we can create a collaborative paragraph using specific. So that's really what I'm looking for in this, is making sure that we are using math vocabulary, that we're using sentence structures that make sense in math, and that we're reinforcing the math and the language at the same time. Now, if you've been to the part of the course where we talk about messy objectives, I would definitely do that before getting into this lesson. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'll just go over it quickly, but you could see one in more detail inside the course. So when we do messy objectives, whenever we're working with students, we spend the time up front to generate the background knowledge, set the context, start getting the vocabulary going, and making sure everybody understands exactly where we're going. And it does take a little bit of time up front, but it pays off in the long run because you've set very clear expectations and you have a reference to go back to. So doing this online, sometimes I annotate on the screen while we work and put circles and underline. Sometimes I will just be by a wall and put the chart paper on the wall. Sometimes that just works out easier because I like to get up and circle and underline and do things. So if I'm working with the students and I say we can create, so what's create? And they're going to give you input. This is full participation. And I would probably do all mics on, because in the classroom, I would say just call out. So what is create? So we're going to make, we're going to build, we're going to come up with a collaborative paragraph. So collaborative, what does that mean? And we talk about that. And meanwhile, I'm writing it, annotating it on my objective. So paragraph, it's going to be a couple sentences. We're not writing a whole long story. We're not writing an essay. A couple sentences that work together to make a paragraph. and it has to have specific math language. And we'll talk about what that math language would be shortly, but you can think it might be numbers, it might be operations. Of course, they would know at this point, we're going to talk about money, so they'll know. We can talk about some of the different money-related vocabulary that they would possibly hear or use. And you can also use that to start your word bank, where you can start jotting down all of that vocabulary, and then you can keep referring back to it. So in our warm-up, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be talking about this picture. And in our classroom, we like to start a lot of things with a picture because it just gives us all a place to start and lets us be a little bit creative and gives us a visual. So we're going to start with this picture. We're going to start creating our word bank. So when we write a paragraph, it has to have math vocabulary. What kind of math vocabulary, what kind of math language am I going to need to write about this picture? I just want single words. So if you want to open up your mic and just call out some words, and I'll start creating a word bank for us. So go right ahead.
Collection.
Oh, good word.
Coins.
Quarter. Currency.
We have some smart students in this class. Students with great vocabulary. Couple more?
Value.
That's a good math word.
Money.
Heads and tails.
Okay. What other, we have quarter. What other names of coins do you see there?
Penny, dime.
And so we go on this way. I know where we're heading, so it's that backward mapping. I know what I'm going to ask them to write about, so I want to make sure those words get in there. So at first, I just leave it open and let them say what comes to mind, and then I would start prompting and asking if some of the words that I want, because I know I'm going to want them to have the names of the coins. Sorry, I had somebody in the waiting room there. I would want the names of the coins, so I want to make sure those come up. And I may ask other questions to bring up other vocabulary, depending on what we want in the end. All right, so we're going to write a collaborative paragraph about this picture. We have to do some brainstorming first because we have to think about what can we write about this? We don't know much about what's going on besides there's a hand with some coins. So start thinking about how you might write about this. So we are going to get into small groups in a moment. And in your breakout group, you are going to have a group of 3, hopefully. If it doesn't work out to 3, then we will add another partner on there. But the first person, once you get in your group, you're going to count off who's partner 1, who's partner 2, who's partner 3. If you need a partner 4, then we can just repeat partner. We can have 2 partner 3s in there. So partner 1, you have to think of a name for this person whose hand this is, right? Because we can't just say that person. We don't know if it's a man or a woman or a boy or a girl or who it is. So partner number 1, you're going to give that person a name so we can use the name in our paragraph. And then partner number 1, you are going to write a sentence where you have to use the words penny, nickel, dime, and quarter. Those words must be in your sentence, just partner 1. Partner 2, When you are there, your sentence, you're going to write one sentence about this picture, and your sentence has to include the word dollar or cents, one or the other. You can use both. If you can make that happen, that's fine. But you have to use at least one of those in your sentence. And then the partner threes, you're going to use this frame. Blank needs to blank to blank. So I imagine the first blank is going to be that name you come up with. So Miss Ryder needs blank to blank. All right, something about that money. What am I going to do with it? Do I need more money? Am I going to buy something? What's going to happen with this money? That's what partner three is thinking about. All right, so once you get in your group, you will write your one sentence, and then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put this Google Doc in the chat box, and I want you to go to that chat box. Let me put it in here. I want you to go to that Google Doc and put your group number and then have someone record your sentences. You can each record your own, or you can have one recorder, whatever works for you. You're pretty mature students. I think you can work that out. So you're going to think of your 3 sentences following this pattern, and you're going to go to the Google Doc, and you're going to record your 3 sentences for the rest of the group to see. And then we'll take a peek and look at all of them in a few minutes. So I'm going to put you in breakout groups, and you'll have, let's check in about 5 minutes and see. I'll be able to see the Google Doc, so I'll be able to tell when you all have your sentences in there. But let's try to do that in 5 minutes or so. So we have, okay, we're going to need, all right, you ready for your rooms? Everybody have their directions? You have your link to the Google Doc, and off you go. All right, we have everybody coming back from our breakout rooms. Your sentences look awesome. It was good to be able to watch you write as you went, so that was pretty cool. All right, so let me screen share here. Stop sharing my slide and share the Google Doc for a second. All right, I know you all can see it if you have it on your screen, but I want us to look at it together. So I need everyone to turn on your mics. Can't be shy. We're all going to read group number 1's sentences together, and they chose the name Jose, so that's Jose's hand we're looking at for you. I like all the different names.
Kelly, is it okay if you enlarge the screen a little bit? I can't read
the paragraphs.
Yeah. Make the screen bigger. That's. Thank you.
That work? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to just read group number 1's out loud together, everybody with me. So all mics on, and let's start with Jose. So
Jose has a dime, 2 cents, and 2 quarters. Jose has 62 cents.
Jose
needs to buy something at the store that is worth 62 cents.
All right, nice. Group 1, good work there. So you did a little bit of calculating. You figured out that that is 62 cents. I'm just going to look at the others quickly. Everybody said 62 cents. So our math is in good shape here. So now we're going to go back in your breakout rooms, and this is what I want you to do together as a group, because when we all read together like that, it's a little hard to hear. So go back in your breakout room, and you're going to read through the sentences for the different groups because you're gathering ideas. Our next step will be borrowing sentences from each other to create our final collaborative paragraph. So you might use just your group sentences, or you might want to borrow some from other groups. So when you go in your breakout rooms, read through all of what the different groups wrote. You can take turns, you can read together, whatever works for you. Make sure you help each other out if anyone gets stuck, and give everybody a voice in there. And then when you're finished reading through everything, come on back to the big group for our last direction. So I'm going to open up all the rooms, head on in there and read all of the sentences together. There we go. Okay. We're going to model first. You're going to write a paragraph together. Now, right now we have number 1, number 2, number 3, and we know that's not what paragraphs look like. So I am going to go right up here to the top just to model a little bit. I'm going to take some ideas from each of you. I want your final paragraph to have at least 4 sentences. That means you have to borrow at least one idea from another group since you only came up with 3. So if my paragraph has 4 sentences, remember a paragraph starts indented. So I'm going to, Jose has a dime, 2 cents, and 2 quarters. I want, whoops, can't spell. I want to use that sentence. Now remember, in a paragraph, you don't skip to the next line until you run out of room. So we're going to keep going. I'm going to steal one from, borrow one from group number 2. I can't do John because I already said Jose. So we're just going to say, he has no dollars. I'm going to change it up a little, but he does have 62 cents. Right, depending on the level of my students, we might want to model some more complex sentences. You might want to keep it very simple. So here's where your modeling becomes part of the differentiation. So think about who's in your group and what you want their goal to be. If you're focusing on using commas in a sequence, make sure that gets in there. If you're focusing on combining sentences, make sure that gets in there. Whatever it is you are working on as a goal at that time. Right, then I would go ahead and model doing at least 4 sentences and pulling the different ideas so that they get the idea. And then again, we're going to practice reading my paragraph chorally because it's the repetition. So we're just going to keep reading these and speaking and reading and speaking and writing. So for the last part of our lesson today, I want you to go all the way to the bottom of the Google Doc, and I want you to put your group number again, group 1, and then have a recorder type out your paragraph that you come up with as you do this in your breakout room. So now is your chance, at least 4 sentences in a paragraph, and you can borrow ideas from anywhere on this Google document to help you write your paragraph. Make sure everybody has a voice. Make sure everybody gets a say in the final paragraph. Okay, off you go. Nice. All right, I see some smiles and laughing on the camera here. That's good. I wonder what was going on in your group. That's really my class. I'd have to be popping into those breakout rooms. And then if you can pre-assign your breakout rooms depending on what kind of system you use, if it's Zoom or Google Meet or something like that, then even better, you could set up your groups to be more successful if you know who's in them and then which groups you need to pop in on, so that you can be supportive in there as well. If you have a group of very new beginning proficiency students, you could go into that breakout room and you could be the recorder and help generate their ideas and record them and do it in a much more guided way within that group. Since you all are pretty proficient, you are doing well on your own. I want to get to, so from there I would save all of their paragraphs, because going forward we would use this for more reading. So we would read each other's paragraphs, read all of them. In your small group, read through all of them. Each person pick your favorite, and then we can have individual people read depending on how the personalities are, if they can be put on the spot. But a lot of that can happen in the breakout rooms, so there's not as big of an audience and they're not as intimidated. So some different things you can do with that. Talking about then I would follow up with some independent, right? So now I want you to write one on your own. Write your own paragraph if your students are at that level. And you can give them some guidelines of what that would look like. Now, this took us about 45 minutes to work through, and I cut your work short in a couple places. So you can see how this could be chunked into a series of lessons. If you're the ESL person who is supporting the content classroom, then you're not as pressed to get back to the math, so you can spend the time working through all the different language pieces. If I'm the math teacher in this, I would probably take one piece to do as a warm-up each day as we're working on money. So today we're just going to write our sentences about the picture. Then tomorrow, as our warm-up, we're going to take those sentences, and remember, we're working toward a paragraph. So today we're going to do the paragraph as our warm-up and then get back into the math. Then at day 3, we're going to write our paragraph. Just use the pieces of it as a warm-up and do it over a series of days. Lots of different things you can do with it from there. I have somehow misplaced, sorry, I'm looking at 2 different screens. I've misplaced my chat window. I don't know where it went. I'll have to find it. What I want you to do now, let me put my screen share back to the PowerPoint. So now you're back to being the teachers, and I want you to think about the differentiation side of it, right? This is one way. There's another way to do collaborative paragraphs in the course. Like I said, there's a million different ways you can make this happen. So I would like to get some feedback from you now in some brainstorming. I'm going to mix up your group so you can work with some other folks and get to know new people. And I'm going to put the link to the Padlet in the chat box when I find where mine went, and let you give some feedback on the Padlet about how would you then take all of this into some shared or independent writing from where we left off. What else? I talked a little bit about how you could differentiate and support, but what else might you do to differentiate and support the various levels? And how would you challenge the more proficient students in this? And then anything else. If you thought anywhere along the way, oh, if this was my class right at this point, I would probably do, go ahead and put that in our brainstorm, because this is where you can customize and modify everything to fit the different students that you're working with. So I'm going to put the Padlet link in the chat, put you back in breakout rooms, and you are going to talk about these 3 questions in your breakout room, and then add your thoughts to the Padlet when you can get on there. So I want to recreate your rooms. mix you up a bit. Off you go.
District, we're working on a two-plan onboarding, a 2-week plan for onboarding students, like navigating through all the platforms and all the links and how do you do all these things? Not instruction. Let's start with that and some building relationships with all of us.
Yeah, it's going to be a new twist of, you usually spend the first couple weeks really focused on relationships and work on it all year long. But what does that look like online? Because it was easier for me to be able to say to them, like, we know what you look like. Quit, hiding behind the camera. We've seen you at 7 a.m. So we know what your hair looks like when it's messy. So it's a little different though if they haven't met together. So
Yes.
it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. All right, I think everybody's back from their breakout rooms now, and we've made it almost to our hour. So good for you all for hanging in there. I hope that this can spur some ideas for you about how you might be able to use collaborative paragraphs in a lot of different ways in different contexts. So I think before we part, I'd like to get your individual thoughts because you've done a lot of group thinking. So in the chat, if you could just give a bit of reflection. So what do you think about this demonstration? Is it something you would use? Where do you see that it could fit in? And if you have a particular tweak that you're already thinking you'd like to do with students you'll be working with. So just do a little individual reflection in the chat box, please. Feel free to keep adding, and I will compile your ideas to put in a document to go with the PowerPoint and the recording of our session today. I saw one come by about Google Meet, and Google Meet is what I had to use with students this year. That's what we were approved for. Hopefully there'll be more options now that everyone has had this summer to plan. It was cumbersome, but this is how we did breakout groups. And I can't tell you it will be all smooth sailing, but it got the job done. We had one Google Meet code for the whole group. So everyone's logging into the whole group, put in this code, we have our class. Then each group that I wanted to work together had I had set up other Google Meet codes so that each group then left the whole group Google Meet and went into a new small group Google Meet. So there was a lot of in and out. It wasn't ideal, but we were able to accomplish a similar thing. So we'll have to help each other out with that once we get started with students again and find some of those tricks to make life easier, because we don't get a lot of control over what platforms we're allowed to use. So any questions or comments for the whole group? You're welcome to open your mic and share something or put in the chat box before we wrap it up. All right, the borrowing sentence, it takes some of the pressure off that if I'm not a great writer, I don't have to come up with it all on my own, as long as I can put something cohesive together in the end. Definitely help. I will, I'll put the Padlet link again. Let me, oops, got screen, mouse all over the place. Nope, that's not it. Padlet link is here.